We are joined here by the one and only Jonathan Holling. And I am thrilled to be doing another member video review. And John, we really appreciate you taking the time. As always, you're the best.
Well, I appreciate that, and these are always super fun to do. So it's easy to show up.
Awesome. And it's a holiday week, and John is here, and he is bright and shiny as always. And that is just so appreciated. How
Mhm.
are things going in Florida this time of year for you?
Well, I think you may have oversold bright and shiny,
You're
but
always bright and shiny.
I put on a hat, so that helps. It's pretty tough. So like today, I have all of the doors open in the house because the temperature outside is like 72 degrees and sunny.
It's amazing.
It's breezing through. Was a little bit warm. I've got just a little bit of like a little bit of a sweat on earlier today when I was riding one. Um, it's tough at Christmas down here in Florida.
Yeah, I really can't relate. It is honestly painfully cold in New York right now. So I'm jealous, but I'm happy for you. I am very happy
Thank
for
you.
you, and
We,
I think you deserve it because you're outside all day long.
well, and we pay the price in the summer, so we're
Yeah.
reaping the rewards right now.
Honestly, the summer is bad here too. I don't really know. I don't know why I'm here. Um, but anywho, do the horses get this time of year off, or are you riding everyone right now?
Everybody's back into work, so they basically at the end of November, like just before Thanksgiving, got off right after Terra Nova, and they're all back hacking and trotting and doing stuff now.
Man, there is no rest when you are winning everything. When you got to get out there and win, you can't
Or
rest.
just showing up.
Or just showing up. That
Right.
too. Um, wonderful. Well, on that note, let's jump into some videos. Do you feel ready?
I am so ready. I have not previewed any of these as usual, so I'm excited.
We're going in green on this one. We're going in blind. Blind is the
Blind.
word I was looking
Yes.
for.
There you go.
Um, okay, we're gonna start with Victoria. And you can see Victoria, correct?
Yes.
Great. I will give you. Oh, can you? She's still. Yeah, she's still going.
Yep. There we go.
Okay. Victoria has been riding this 6-year-old horse for about 3 weeks and is enjoying getting to know him. She's working on not falling forward when asking for a lead change or when picking up the canter. She notices that she goes too quickly to the inside rein. Oh, did it freeze?
It's sort of freezing on and off, but I get the general idea here.
Okay, one second. Let me try. I'm gonna move you to a different screen and see if that helps. Hold on. Sorry. Momentary technical difficulties.
All good.
Maybe. I think my computer's on holiday break already. It's just refusing to work.
Too much eggnog.
Yeah. I don't know what's happening right now. I have a white screen of death. And we're going to give it one last try here. Well, not one last. I'm going to give it a lot more than one. But here we go. Okay. I think this is going to work. Hopefully that plays through.
There we
Okay.
go.
There you go. Still, well.
Yeah.
Why is my computer being difficult today? Okay.
Have you tried turning it off and turning it back on again?
It's honestly, it always works. That's the problem with that. Okay, I feel like it might be working now.
Yeah, it looks better now.
Kind of. Okay. She notices that she goes too quickly to the inside rein instead of using the outside rein to turn. And when she uses too much inside rein, the horse tends to pop his shoulder out. He can feel heavy on the forehand, and she often uses the reins to bump his head up, but she finds that she can become too heavy on his face. She's looking for advice on all of these points.
Okay. So I think all of those are very normal things. And you said this is a younger horse? I know it's
He's 6 years old, and she's been riding him for 3 weeks, so new to her.
Okay. So first thing I'd say is just as a positive, the one thing I really like here is that it has a really nice rhythm everywhere it goes, whether it's on the correct lead, the incorrect lead, whether it's cutting the turns a little bit or coming in perfectly straight. The rhythm is always very, very good. So I think she sounds like she has a pretty good idea of understanding of keeping horses straight. I think one thing I always try to imagine is that when I'm trying to ride a horse through a turn, I want my riders to feel like their rib cage of their horse is bending and yielding from their inside leg, but that what's in front of them is staying relatively straight and connected. So the reason we go to the inside rein as riders so often is because we're trying to create bend. And that's not incorrect. You do want bend because with bend usually comes suppleness and comes connection. But as Vittoria, is that right? Yeah. So as Vittoria was saying that she was feeling like she was going to the inside rein too much, I think the thing to realize is there's a valid reason for that, and it's because you're trying to create bend, trying to create connection, but then you do lose that outside shoulder a lot of the time. So in certain places, it looked like she was using circles between the jumps to help her and to get the horse reconnected. But I think when like, let's say, for example, you're cantering to a jump on the left lead and you have a right turn coming up, before you jump that fence, you want to imagine that your right leg is coming on, preparing for that right turn, not so that you yield your horse way over to the left. Because if you yield your horse way over to the left, usually what happens is then either the shoulder bulges out through the turn, or probably even worse, the hind end swings out through the turn. So you want to always imagine that when you're riding a turn, you want your horse to be straight. But when we talk about straight on a turn, that means that the hind legs are tracking in the same line as the front legs. Not that your horse is straight as an arrow. That would actually have bend through its body, but its bend through its body is, what I sort of sometimes say in a lot of my ride IQ lessons, that you want your horse to be straight on a circle. So you want to imagine if you were standing over top of your horse in that course and going from one fence to the next, that your horse's hind legs are tracking straight to your horse's front legs. And I think one thing you can do when you feel like you need to go to that inside rein, usually it's because you're also feeling like the horse is a little bit tight in its jaw. So you can, as a little bit of an aid, but you don't want it to become a bad habit, you can lift that inside rein a little bit as well to pick the bit up into the corners of your horse's mouth. That will help get it to yield to that, right? Because you're not pulling down on the bars of your horse's mouth, you're pulling up into the corners of your horse's mouth. And then once you get the softness, then you can put the hand back down. Like this here, this is actually now buffered beautifully. Good job, Kinsey. Like I think that actually from fence 1 to fence 2 was a beautiful turn, and you didn't overbend the horse. The other thing I would do, which you do here, but then later in the course I believe we don't get done, is simple changes. And then if you need a circle like this, put your circle in and stay sort of disciplined and focused on that, because if your horse is going to be on the correct lead, it's going to make life a lot easier to keep the balance and keep it straight. And this here again was actually a very nice turn. And I don't see so much that you're really over bending on that inside rein in the right turn there. And then again here, I probably would have done a circle. Yep, trotted there. And I think that was really well done to trot, get the next lead, and get organized. But again, I think the big thing is just visualize that your hind end is tracking straight to your horse's front end. That's quite good there. And then here it looks like, as an exercise, you were going to ride that turn. You were on the left lead. There's times where I would tell my students, look, we're going to ride through this and your horse has to pick it up. And other times where I would have said, put the circle in there. If the concern with this horse is balance and organization and keeping the shoulders in line, I probably would tend to do more of what you did early in the course or earlier in the video, riding the circles, riding the transitions to trot, getting the next canter lead. But again, I would think as much about the hind end tracking straight to the front end as I would about the shoulder bulging to the outside.
Love that. And right. Jessa actually gets the credit for the video working better now. She's now doing that from her side. My computer has decided to not be helpful tonight. So thank you, Jessa. Okay. Our wonderful submission, Victoria. Loved that. Our next video is from Katie Emerson. Katie is riding Finn, a 5-year-old warm blood mare who competed at novice level this fall. The video begins with their round at the new UDJC show circuit in the meter .05 jumpers, which is the highest either of them has jumped. At the end of the video, there's a short clip from a recent cross country school. Katie's main question is how to create a better canter for jumping. Judges commented that the canter looks a bit scrambly at times and suggested slower, more ground covering strides rather than faster, flatter ones. Katie understands the feedback, but is unsure how to produce an uphill canter with more suspension and reach. She's looking for exercises on the flat or over poles and fences to help improve this. She has changed bits since that show and is now using a loose ring double jointed snaffle during cross country schooling, which she prefers over the bevel bit, which she was using previously because the bevel caused Finn to want to go above the bit and avoid contact. They do not have lead changes yet, and Katie often keeps Finn in counter canter rather than doing a simple change at shows because it helps maintain a better rhythm. She is hoping that creating a more balanced canter will also help them progress with lead changes as they begin thinking about training level. Katie has not ridden above novice before, so this is a new territory for both of them.
Okay, so that's a lot of really great information. And the first thing I'd say, a little bit like Victoria's video, it's a really nice rhythm the whole way around here. And you can see like here we're on the counter canter coming around. And I don't disagree necessarily at the horse show that you say, sometimes it just makes sense to go into counter canter. I think that's sometimes it does, right? Like in that situation, you didn't have enough time to get the change done and you would have definitely affected the rhythm there. Let's watch our cross country here a little bit. There's a lot of really good pole exercises that I'm going to tell you about here in a minute that you can work on to work on the quality of the canter. That is something that takes time, and that is something that is homework. I think for the actual round, the way you rode that was actually very well done. And if you can find a bit like the loose ring double jointed bit that your horse is going to be a little more comfortable in, I think that is probably the most helpful thing as far as in competition stuff, is finding equipment, tack, bits that your horse is going to be happier to listen to. So for the homework, what do we do? For flat work, so when you're in your dressage saddle or just doing flat work in a jump saddle, I think I do a lot of work lengthening and shortening my canters. That is easier said than done when you have a horse that doesn't naturally canter great. The big thing when I'm working on a horse with a weak canter is making sure that you have enough power in that canter. So a lot of times you'll see people trying to work on a collected canter with a horse like this that maybe doesn't naturally have the greatest canter in the world. And what happens is they're going slow. They're collecting and the horse gets 4 beat. Now, I didn't see a 4 beat canter in that round really, because you were riding forward, you were riding your coursework. But from what you're telling me, that would be my one big caution, is if you work collected work all the time, what tends to happen is the horses get tight, they can't carry it behind, and then they start shuffling their hind feet and losing rhythm behind. So I really feel strongly that for the flat work, you probably need to be cantering a little bit more forward than you think. And that seems counterintuitive when you're talking about working on strengthening a canter and working on a slower canter. Well, why would I go faster? But you can't go so slow that your horse loses the rhythm in that canter, because that's not building it correctly. It's sort of like going to the gym and doing squats and just putting on more weight than you can possibly lift. Well, then you can't do a squat. You're better off to do an air squat for a long time, build that strength over time, and then eventually you can add weight to it. It's the same theory with the canter work. That said, you're going to want to do some work in your flat work to work on some collection. You just can't do it for really long. So what I love, and again, it's in a lot of the canter lessons that I have, is spiraling in and spiraling out in the canter. So we'll do a 20-meter circle in like what I would probably say you think is like medium canter, okay? And then you're going to spiral in to a 15, maybe a 12-meter canter circle, and that's going to force collection. You just have to. You can't make that turn without having some collection, but don't stay there too long. Go there, get even if it's 3-4 steps of a good canter, and then spiral back out again and freshen up that canter and then come back in again. The other thing that's really great to strengthen canter work is counter canter. And that doesn't mean that you have to go across a short diagonal, hold counter canter, and go on a 20-meter circle and counter canter. You can do simple things. You can start it in a field with big shallow loops. Once you get good at that, you can do it in the field with a big, like 80-meter half circle. And then if you want to do it in a small ring, in a dressage ring, I'll do it very often, introduce it just a little shallow loop to the quarter line and then back and the near quarter line. So it's like a 5-meter loop. And then once you master that, you can go to the center line and back. And then once you master that, then you could try to venture out around the whole ring and counter canter. But I would spend weeks working on that. Counter canter in the end is probably, as far as flat work goes, the most beneficial thing to work on the quality of canter for a horse that has a weak canter. I had a horse named Telluride years ago that I took to Kentucky, and he had the worst canter of any horse I've ever taken up the levels. He was a great galloper, he was a great jumper, but he couldn't canter his way out of a paper bag. And we spent his entire career working counter canter to try to get him stronger, and was successful. We got it done. But it was always a weakness of that horse. I say that so you know there is light at the end of the tunnel. There is a chance that you can work and improve this, but it's going to take a lot of transitions. Don't canter for a really long time on the flat, and then incorporate spiral ins, spiral outs, and counter canter. I know I'm getting long on this one, Kinsey, but the next thing is canter pulls. So you can do that on the flat. What I love is my fan exercise, which again is in some of the lessons, where you have 3 cavalettis on, I usually put them on about in the center, a 7-foot distance from, like if you imagine there's 3 poles 7 feet apart on like a 20-meter circle. Then if you canter into that, if they're on a 20-meter circle with 7 feet in the center, that means on the outside, they're probably at like 10 feet. And on the inside, they're probably on like 5 feet. So you can kind of play with where in that circle on those poles does that distance work for you. You could move them out to about 8 feet. I know everybody's like, well, 7 feet seems so incredibly short, but on a circle, you can play with jumping more to the outside. And it actually gives you a little bit of options with your horses. So I probably wouldn't go more than 8 feet at center. Bounces are a great thing to work on, and they don't have to be bounces in a gymnastic. They can be like cavaletti bounces. Again, depending on the height, you have to adjust the distance between there. You want them to be somewhere between probably 8 feet at the very, very shortest to 12 feet at the very, very longest. And you have to kind of play with that. If they're higher, they need a little more room. So I'd start with that gradually. Another great one that I really like is I will set a pole, and this helps you not just with your canter, it helps you have an understanding of your length of stride, and it helps you work on your eye. But I love to set a pole on the ground or up and shot like the lowest setting of cavaletti blocks. And I set it 6 strides to a jump. You can do it, you know, if you don't have room, you can do it as few as 3 or 4 strides, but 6 strides is pretty nice. When we do 6 strides, so let me get out my handy dandy calculator here because I'm a math whiz. So for 6 strides at horse show distance, which would be 12 feet, we would actually do 7 times 12, which is 84, because we count 6 feet for takeoff and 6 feet for landing. But because we're doing a cavaletti, we subtract 6 feet from that. So you want 78 feet from your pole on the ground to your jump. That's for 6 strides, and that's how you work that math out. Where are we? It's right there. 78, right? Perfect. Okay, so 78 feet. So that's another one that's really great. I also do a canter zigzag, where I have 3 poles sort of zigzagged on the ground, and I work on the cavaletti, just cantering around to those poles and just cantering on like nice half 10, half 15-meter circles. That's another one I know is buried somewhere in the Ride IQ archives. I'm sure it's in there. I can't imagine if it's not, it should be. Kenzie gives me the yes, it's there somewhere. Any cavaletti pole work is going to be great. You can do them singly, you can do them in lines. I also sometimes will set 2 poles on a related distance, like 33 feet and 42 or 45 feet apart, and just canter between the poles and work on lengthening and shortening. So adding and subtracting strides in those lines. So I know I've thrown a lot at you. And it's not a sales job to make you go check out my lessons, but you should, because they're the best ones on here. But there's a lot of canter pull exercises in here that those would all be super, super helpful.
Amazing. I mean, I think throwing a lot at her is exactly what she was looking for. So you gave her a lot of really actionable things to go work on, and I think she's going to have some great homework. And definitely report back on progress, Katie. Victoria from our first video is in the chat, and she had a follow-up question. She is asking, if the horse is slightly dead to the leg for those turns, do you just need to focus on responsiveness then?
Yeah, so I guess my question would be, when she says it's dead to the leg, does she mean like he gets behind the leg, or that he doesn't push off the leg left and right? So, because that'd be two different things. If it's that the horse is dead to the leg in general and just doesn't go when you put your leg on, then you need to do lots of transition work in your warm-up to make sure. I also think in your warm-up, one of my favorite exercises, whether I'm at home or at a horse show, it's actually one of my favorite ones at a horse show because it's so easy to do, is I will lengthen up the long side and then do a 10-meter circle in the corner. And then I'll lengthen up the short side and do a 10-meter circle in the corner, and just repeat that around the ring for my warm-up for my horses, so that they enter every corner expecting that they need to balance, sit up, and wrap themselves around my inside leg. I love that exercise, and that is a great one because when you think about like your rollback turns, that's exactly what you need. When you think about getting away from out of a corner, that's exactly what you need. So lengthen on the straight sides, circles in the corners.
She said not responsive to the leg, as in doesn't push off the leg left and right.
Okay, so that exercise I just gave you is a great one for that. I also think then probably in general you need to work on leg yielding, like when you're out doing trot sets, when you're warming up to jump, when you're doing your flat work on those leg yields. That's something that I think sometimes we forget with the young horses, because we're like, oh, we don't really need leg yielding until we go preliminary, but it helps with this problem a lot.
Awesome. Well, Victoria, love that you're in chat and asking questions. That is
Absolutely.
awesome. This next video is our friend Robin. You know Robin well, John, and she is saying in this round, she gave him the rail at the first fence. John had already left to walk cross country and did not see the round, and so she's looking for any feedback that you have.
This is awesome. So Robin told me that the problem with the first fence was that she did not follow coach's instructions in the turn and how she was going to approach it. So let's see how this goes. Yeah, so the instructions were to go around the pink oxer there through the double, and we didn't. And so because of that, we had a little bit of a short approach, tough line to get in there to fence one. That said, Monty certainly could have saved the day, but that fence was falling down a lot. He was a little late in his change there between 1 and 2, but I thought got it together just in the nick of time, which is a credit to Robin. This fence down here cost me a lot of money earlier in the weekend, and so Robin did a good job there. And then it is a long gallop down here to this black fence, and I really think black is one of the hardest colors to jump, which probably didn't help at fence 1 either. And I will say, in general, Monty's just a little late with his changes behind, and I think that's because when we put our leg on to ask for the change, we're letting the hind end swing a bit to the outside. We got to get a better feel for pushing those haunches to the inside as we make the turns. But that's going to be a long-term project, because this is such a talented horse, but he is a big dude. And Robin is a great rider, but she's like 100 pounds soaking wet. And so it takes a lot of practice and a lot of schooling to get him to really pay attention to everything she has to say. He was good there because Robin got a little bit up the neck coming into the pink there. And I thought, honestly, and I'm not just saying it because Robin rides with me and is, just been such a great student and person and part of our team here in Club Holling as well. But she's just done such a great job with this horse, and kudos to her, because he can be quite difficult, and she's done such a good job, and he's so talented. But the lecture I would give to Robin, which I kind of already gave her, but as a lecture to everybody, When I enter a ring, I literally know every step I'm going to take, every grain of sand I'm going to step on from the moment I walk through the gate to the moment I exit the ring. And that is one thing that I think all of us can be better about, is understanding that it's not enough to just go in there and say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 A, B, C, 7, 8, 9 A, B, 10. You have to know the numbers. Sure. Yeah. And you have to know how your horse is going to jump into the line and how that might affect the next fence. But you literally need to know the tour that you're going to take before you go jump fence 1. And that is what cost Robin that 4 points at fence 1, was that it wasn't the line. We talked about it, but you're covering so much information, and it is difficult. It is something you practice. And I've made similar mistakes. We all have. But that is what cost her that, is just the short turn, short approach. He didn't really design it, and it was a difficult first fence in general all weekend. It was the second fence for a lot of the upper level courses, and it came down then too, because you're jumping into that pavilion there where all the people are sitting. But I'll have it planned out to like, okay, I'm going to go trot in. I'm going to show them the Liverpool. I'm going to go show them the bogey fence at fence 1. I'm then going to go trot over and show them the arena stand. One thing to remember when you're doing an FEI, those judges, for the most part, will not blow the whistle until you salute. So you have a little bit of power to be able to take a slightly longer tour than maybe they would like to allow, because they can get a little bit sticky about like, no, you have to stop and salute. Sometimes they get impatient and they'll ring the bell, but for the most part, you kind of control when you start. So don't be in a rush, take a breath, think about how you want to take your tour before you start the course. I usually go in there, do that, and then I look around and ride through the course in my head, and then I give a salute. If they're quick on the buzzer, you got 45 seconds to start, and there's a clock somewhere in that ring at the FEIs. There's supposed to be. So look for the clock if you're unsure if they blew that whistle for you, and just know 45 seconds is an eternity. So you can use every second of it, and you'll see a lot of the guys like Buck and Will Coleman. I mean, Buck is a master of it. He will use every single second to the point where I've been out there watching and like, oh my God, Buck, you got to start. And he'll go canter through with like 2 seconds left, boom, through the start, and away he goes. So use your time and know your tour and know your turns, so you don't end up on the wrong side of the pink fence and have the first fence down when you shouldn't.
Well, what I would say is, Robin, that was a beautiful round.
It was a beautiful round. Robin knows that, but she wants to know why. And we did talk about it. It was all about the wrong turn, because the rest of it was gorgeous.
Yeah. How big is he? He does look really, really large.
He's big. I want to say he's got to be 17 hands. Like when I ride him occasionally, when she blesses me and lets me ride him, I'm always impressed at how big he is. He is such a cool horse. He is so talented, so scopy. He loves bananas. He is, to be fair, and I think Robin would admit this, he is spoiled, but it's because he's flipping amazing.
Should be.
And Robin does such a good job with him. And I mean, awesome. Truly has just, I mean, she's gone preliminary now on him, and she's doing amazing things. It's really been fun to be a part of it.
Amazing. Robin, I'm a huge fan. Love that. Okay. Next up is Isabel. And this video is Isabel, a 14-year-old rider who is new to riding. Her horse's name is Ruari, I believe. It's Ruari. So I might be saying that wrong. I apologize. A 10-year-old Gypsy Vanner gelding. They are currently working on roundness, sharpening his response to the aids, and learning dressage movements such as leg yields and turn on the forehand. They took a break from cantering after a mishap that resulted in a fall, and it was later discovered that Ruari needed a sharp point on his teeth addressed. He is now feeling much better, and Isabel is regaining her confidence and preparing to try the canter again. They're hoping to show intro dressage this summer and would like advice on rider position and exercises to help continue building harmony with Ruari.
Awesome. All right. So first thing I'd say here for Isabel is that you have exceptionally good hands, which is that is the first thing that I noticed as you were riding around in rising trot and now in sitting trot is your hands are honestly pretty incredible. They have a beautiful straight line from the bit to your hand to your horse's to your elbow rather. And you can see a really good example of that here. And whether you're rising or sitting, they are just very nice, sympathetic hands. And I suspect, although that takes hard work and practice and obviously good coaching on your basics, it looks to me like also you're just pretty gifted with good hands, which is awesome. That makes life so much easier for you and your horse. Your leg is very good. I would say that for dressage, you tend to have a little bit what I would call a jumper leg. So your heel is nice and deep, which is awesome, and your leg is long, but your toe is out, and your ankle is sort of broken a little bit to the outside or to the inside, I guess depends on how you think of it. So like if you would imagine as you're standing in your stirrups, your weight looks to be a lot in your big toe, which is a little more how you would want to be in a jumping saddle. And for dressage, you want to think about being more toe in. So when you're riding in your jumping leg position, your feet are going to be here. And when you're riding in your dressage position, you want your feet to be a little more here. So the way we accomplish that is jumping, step on your big toe that way, and dressage, step on your pinky toe here, okay? So you're going to be on your pinky toe there, a little bit toe in. That's going to put a little pressure on your knees and a little pressure on your hip flexors. And you're going to be like, wow, that's not super easy for me to do naturally. But it's going to put your leg in a better position to wrap itself around Rory. And I think that I'm going to go with that pronunciation as well. It's going to put your leg in a better position to have your whole leg wrapped around him because he is a big dude, right? And it's a lot of horse to have to manage and ride. And right now it looks like you sort of have calf on, really good hands, and then the upper part of your leg and your knee just lightly touching him, but not really probably as effective as it could be. If you can get your toe in, your leg stretching down, and be able to wrap your whole leg around him, that's going to help you a lot. So things that I would be working on, I would do a lot of work without stirrups. You look like you're ready for that. So I would do a lot of work without stirrups. And now one thing for me personally, as an instructor and a rider and a competitor, I don't do anymore, I haven't done it in years, posting stirrupless work. I think it is unnecessary. I think it makes people really tight in their hip flexors and pinch with their knees. And I think it's counterproductive myself. I'm sure there's hunter jumper trainers and that would probably argue with that. And I would be willing to debate it for sure. But I think I would do a lot of sitting work without stirrups. So make sure because of that, that you warm up with stirrups, give your horse's back a chance to warm up. I would do a lot of transitions, which is kind of, if you've listened to any of these Ask an Expert things, I'm big on transitions. So I would do a lot of transition work to help get him a little bit better in front of your leg. The nice thing about the Gypsy Vanner horses in general, and I think Rory looks to be a beautiful example of one, is that they are very kind, very sweet, very great sort of horses for people to learn to ride on. The negative side is that they are not quick twitch, athletic, thoroughbred type horses, right? They're just not. They're big, strong, sturdy horses. And so with that, a lot of times what comes is that they can get a little bit dull, a little bit heavy on their head, and a little bit kind of plodding along. So I think you need to work on lots of transition work to get him sharp. I'm glad you've dealt with the veterinary stuff with his mouth. That should help you a ton in the canter work. But a horse like him is going to be a horse that's going to be difficult to canter on. In general, because he's going to be moving very up and down with his legs in the canter and probably getting a little bit on his head. And so you're going to have to work. That doesn't mean everyone is that way, but I would say in general, that tends to be the way that sort of body type of a horse can get. And then they can just, get a little bit heavy on their head. So you want to be doing a lot of the stuff we were talking about with the last horse of sort of cantering a little bit more forward, do a little spiral in, spiral out. How small you spiral in depends a little bit on his ability and comfort level and your ability and comfort level. But lots of transitions in trot. And when you're ready to canter, lots of transitions in canter. All of this said, it looks to me, and I'm not sure if that was your coach standing in the middle or a parent, but it looks to me like if that was your coach, they've done an excellent job with you, teaching you all of the basics, which is amazing. So you have a good support team around you. And, the great news is that you're also checking in on Ride IQ here and using that to help you in between those lessons. So I think you have a really good start. Keep focused on those hands because they are so good. And I'll tell you what, the greatest compliment I've ever gotten in my entire life was when I did my very first advanced. I think I was 18 years old, maybe 19. And the jump judge at the first combination came and found me and told me how good my hands were there. And I was so happy, and I've remembered it to this day. It is the most important thing as a rider is that you have good hands because their mouth is so sensitive and you want to be sympathetic to it. So good job. You look like you're well on your way to having a great riding career.
Yeah, I love that. Awesome video, Isabel, and I'm excited for more updates from her and Rory. That one's a tough one for me. Okay, next up is Landy. Landy is, and their video will be here shortly, I believe. Yep. Okay.
Good job, Jess.
Yeah. Thank you, Jessa. Landy is riding her horse, Palatial Decorum, whom she has had since she was 5 years old. They have been through a lot together. He was very spicy when he first started, when she first started riding him, and while he is now much calmer and more confident, they still struggle with consistency in the working trot and canter, particularly getting him soft through his back and stretching into the contact without bracing. He goes best when he has something specific to focus on, and teaching him stretchy trot has helped, though his contact remains very light and easy to overdo. And then the next video that we're going to show is in jumping. He has improved significantly, but Landy is still rebuilding her confidence because he used to refuse. She is working on helping him look for the jumps while shortening the stride to approach the fences more consistently. She's looking for tips on these issues and any additional feedback that you have.
All right. So the first thing I noticed when I was watching the video is what an athlete he looks like. Like he just is quite a blood horse. Really looks like he's got all the athletic ability in the world. And, like we were talking about the last horse being a little bit sort of solid, good citizen type horse. This one would be the opposite side of that. Like he looks like he's fast twitch muscle, aggressive, wants to go get it. And so in either case, you want to appreciate that with the good comes the negative as well, right? So with a horse like this, the fact that he is an athlete is amazing, but he's sensitive. So I love that although I agree you're dealing with some issues with connection, that I didn't ever see you cranking and pulling him down and making him go round. And I think that's really important because the first thing is he has to be happy in his work. The one thing that you didn't mention in your comments and I'd be interested in is what kind of mouthpiece you have in him when you're doing your flat work in particular. To the jumps, he looks pretty good here, pretty manageable and connected. But I think you could play around with the mouthpieces on a horse like this and see if there's something that he's going to be a little more comfortable taking a hold of, because he did look inconsistent in the contact. So the first thing I would want to do is make sure that he's good to my leg, that when I ask him to trot, he trots. When I ask him to walk, he walks. So again, sticking with the theme, I would do lots of transitions, but then I play around with mouthpieces. So I love a loose ring KK French link, but horses that can get a little too light, that bit doesn't work for great. Excuse me. I love a leather mouthpiece, like a nice big Trust is the name of the company. They're like round, circular, almost mullen mouth leather mouthpieces. I love the Springer Duo bit, which is a white plastic that's very soft. And usually when I do that one, I try to get it in a D ring because again, they sell the Nathe bits and sometimes the Springer Duo bits in a loose ring, but a loose ring is always going to have motion and movement to it. So if you have a horse that gets heavy, that's great. But if you have a horse that wants to get light, that's a little counterproductive. So I like to have a D ring or a full cheek in either of those, either the leather bit or the plastic bit. You also can try the black rubber bits as well. You do have to make sure with all of those sorts of bits, you keep their mouth really greased up with Vaseline because they can rub and burn them sometimes. Sometimes they're more sensitive to the plastic. Sometimes they're more sensitive to the leather. So the other thing that we should talk about here, though, is just some exercises to work on the connection in general. So like I was saying, transitions are going to be really good. I would work him on circles a lot at home. I also would practice riding in a driving rein sometimes so that you have the rein coming out between your thumbs towards your horse's mouth, not out through the bottom towards the horse's mouth. So practice with a driving rein, especially once you get comfortable with it, especially to the jumps. That's going to help you a little bit because it's going to get you to be really soft and sympathetic. You can't pull as hard that way. If you try it, you'll be shocked actually how you can't pull the same way, and you actually have to have more feel to it. And that's not to say that you don't have good feel. It's to say that this horse requires you to have exceptional feel. It's sort of like if I gave my 17-year-old son the keys to a Ferrari, right? He'd go out and he would ride it or drive it well. He's a pretty good driver, but I guarantee you he'd have it wrapped around a telephone pole the first day because those are really sensitive cars, I'm told. And it requires really a real finesse ride to ride a horse like this. So I would practice with the driving rein. I'd practice riding in that rein, like lots of patterns, going like not just riding around the outside of your ring, but changing direction, doing transitions, just go everywhere, ride everywhere to help you start to get that connection and get that feel with him, doing those transitions. So I think that's all stuff that's going to be super, super helpful. I would stay away from, and I think you probably have, but I'm just going to say it with a horse like this, I would stay away from any gadgets as far as like draw reins or anything like that, because I think that's going to at best be a Band-Aid and cover it up, and then it's going to come back to bite you later. What it looks to me like is you've got to make sure that he's good to the leg, that your hands, which look good, can be just exquisite on a horse like that. But also with that said, make sure that you take a contact, take a feel of the reins. Don't be timid if you touch his mouth and he gets fussy with his mouth. You got to make sure that you don't then go, oh, I'm so sorry, and let go of the rein either, which I didn't see you do in that test, but that horse convinces riders to do that. That you just take a little bit of a feel. He should be able to go around with at least the weight of a can of soda, right, in your hand as you're riding around. And if he gets a little bit upset about it, you don't want to crank in on him and make him get heavier, but you also don't want to just panic and let go of the rein and say, oh, he needs me to be lighter. He needs to accept some contact as well. So I think that's some stuff I would work on. I think I'd be interested to hear back next time, like if you do the driving rein, if that was helpful or not, because I've used that a lot with some of my people and it's been pretty helpful for most of them.
That's awesome. Definitely report back, Landy. Would love to hear an update at the next video review. Okay, John, we are on our 6th video, which is Aaron. Aaron is riding Coda, and this is their first year competing at starter level. They have made a lot of progress, but they still sometimes experience a pause before the jump. Aaron is wondering what they can do to address this and what else they can do to improve overall. The round in the video was filmed at Amber Birtsill Cellar Farms in Sonoma County, California. Beautiful.
Yeah, it's a beautiful place. Okay, so the first thing I would say is when you rode to fence 1 and fence 2, you were very tall, which I can appreciate, but you get a little bit left behind. And I know why, because like you said, that right there happens where he chips in and adds to the fence. That said, you have to imagine when you're riding to any fence on course that you are in a squat position. You can see there's no angle between your upper body and his neck. If anything, you're riding a little bit like you're riding a drop fence. And while that does keep you safe, right, you're not going to typically get ahead of the motion and fall off over your horse's neck when you are in that position. It actually discourages your horse to want, that was much better, by the way, over the pink pony fence. I think that's what that was. It's going to discourage your horse to want to canter forward and move up to those fences and not add that little half stride in. So how do we work on that, right? Because it's a difficult thing to do. Like you say, oh, great, John, I'll stay forward. And then when it chips, I'm going to be up the neck. Yeah. So an exercise that I love to work on is setting just a very small fence. Maybe like if you're looking at this yellow fence there, like pull the top rail off of it and just canter over it on a circle. Nice big 30, 40 meter circle, and just canter around to it and just get comfortable that you can stay in that squat position to the fence, follow over the fence, land in your 2-point canter away. When you get comfortable with that, then you can put the next rail up. You can get comfortable with that, work it both directions, and then you can start incorporating that into a course, into lines. But you want to, like when you're standing in your barn before you get on, do a squat, right? Just do an air squat and see what does your body do. Your body, when you do a squat, does not stay straight like that as you do a squat, right? Your upper body tips forward as you do the squat. So your upper body does this as you squat. And that's because you don't want to fall over backwards. If you did a squat like this, you'd go and fall on your back, okay? You would fall on your rump, which is what's happening. Your horse goes to jump, you stay tall, you fall behind the motion, and boom, you hit your horse's back like that. Even if your hands are super sympathetic and great, which they're pretty good, by the way, but even if your hands are super sympathetic, as soon as that happens, you bump your horse in the back, your horse goes, yeah, I think I'll add a stride in next time because that was pretty uncomfortable. I don't want to stand off and have to carry this over the fence. So when you do your squat on the ground at the gym or in the barn aisle before you get on, you're going to do that with your upper body. And that is the motion that you have to perfect when you're jumping. And that is going to make all the difference in the world. Now, that means you have to commit with your leg, move up to the fence. You have to start being able to see a good distance, which I think you can. But the problem is right now, when you see a distance, you're always pulling to the distance and you need to move up to the distance. That doesn't mean you leave a stride out. It means you move up to the base, up to the same distance that you were riding in this course, but get down to that fence in one less stride to the same distance because your body is going to be cantering in this way, and then your horse jumps and you fold and then you land and you canter away here. Shoulders always in front of your hips. Your shoulders in show jumping can never go behind your hips unless you're in big trouble, and then you need to get back forward. And now, it doesn't mean laying on your horse's neck, right? It's with the motion, not ahead of the motion. Behind the motion is a safer place than ahead of the motion. I never want you ahead of the motion, but you have to follow better to be able to get to the point where he's going to start moving up to those fences and stop chipping in.
Awesome advice. I love that. Aaron, definitely report back how things go. Okay, next video up is Ashlyn. Ashlyn, and the video will be here shortly. Ashlyn is riding Perk, a 6-year-old thoroughbred who is purpose bred and never raced. Oh, she doesn't have Ashlyn. Let me get you Ashlyn. 1 second.
We are so lucky to have this awesome technical support crew at Ride IQ.
Yeah. I got Ashlyn here. I'm okay. Sure. I'll do Stanell now, and then we'll go back to Ashlyn. So Stanell, Stanell is here. Stanell is riding her horse Firefly and an Appaloosa. She has owned Firefly for 3 years, but has spent the last 2 years riding a different horse and has only recently started riding Firefly more regularly. Firefly had prior Western training, and both horse and rider are relatively new to English riding. Stanell understands that she needs to open her chest, relax her body, especially her elbows, and allow her elbows to move forward with the horse's rhythm while still providing direction. She is asking if there's anything Jon sees that would help her do this better without pulling, as well as any other suggestions that you might have.
Okay, so first of all, I love a good Appaloosa, and Firefly is an awesome name for this one. So when you watch the video here from time to time, you can your hands are pretty good, but you do get in the walk, especially just a little bit low in your hands sometimes. So you want to carry your hands a little bit higher. I think you could play around with the driving rein occasionally as well, for sure. That might help you. And just in general, as you're trotting around here, your lower leg gets maybe a little bit out in front of you, which then makes you fall into the back half of the saddle. So while I want you as a rider to be thinking about being tall with your upper body and staying taller and sort of good up through your chest and upper body, be careful that you don't lean back or let your lower leg slide out in front of you. So a little bit like I was saying with the last rider, you want to imagine that if you were to take the horse away and just delete it, which I bet you could do with AI, could you stand in the position that you're in? And I feel like you would fall back onto your rump if you were standing in the aisle or like right there. You see, it's not really a straight line from your heel to your hip to your shoulder. It's more your heel out in front of you, then your seat or your hip out behind you a little bit. This is better here. But you think you just need to keep your lower leg back underneath you a little bit more while still keeping weight in your heel. That length of stirrup also could be a little bit more like a jumping length. So you might play around for your flat work. You could go maybe a hole or two longer. That might help. I love all these transitions you're making, by the way. Well done. And when you go to trot there, though, you do get just, again, a little bit leg out in front. And then in the trot work, your hands come up into about the right place. But it looks like you just occasionally, as you're taking your half halt, you just lose your balance a little bit as well. And right there's a good example of that lower leg getting just a touch out in front of you. That said, I think the basics are all right there. And it's just going to be saddle time. And I know that's not like the most helpful hint of, well, if you just do this, then you'll achieve that. But I think sometimes it's just time in the saddle. And to me, that's what it looks like for you, is like you got the basics there. You have a handle on where you need to be. You can see you just sometimes when the trot changes underneath you, you just lose your balance a little bit, and you're very quick to address it and catch back up. So I think you just need to kind of keep doing what you're doing. You could have a neck strap, a long neck strap that you could grab when you're doing your trot work so that you could just kind of hook a pinky through it. And that might help you just a little bit with the balance from time to time when you feel like you're struggling with it. But it all looks really good. And I am going to bet that when you're ready, Firefly is an amazing jumper, because I have never known an Appaloosa that wasn't.
Yeah, I've known some pretty amazing Appaloosa jumpers.
Oh, they're so good. They're so tighty.
Yeah, totally. Um, okay. Next up, we have Ashlyn, and this is our last this evening, Jon. You are amazing for going through all these. Thank you so much. Ashlyn is riding Perk here, who is a 6-year-old thoroughbred who is purpose bred and never raced. She purchased him approximately 6 months ago as a very green prospect. One ongoing challenge from the beginning has been the trot canter transitions. Perk has a lot of power, sometimes more than either of them knows what to do with, and he can blow through the half halt. Ashlyn finds it difficult to balance maintaining rhythm and balance without managing the front end too much, which can cause him to shut down and become bracy. She's looking for advice on how to think about preparing for the canter depart and riding the canter itself for a horse and rider pair that can struggle to find relaxation. There's a theme this evening.
Yes. And you can see in moments here, the canter is really nice. Like he gave 2 or 3 strides here or there where you're like, oh, that's going to be so good. So I love that we're working on the circle. One thing I'll say for everybody is we have the fan set up there with the trot poles. So if you're wondering what I was talking about, that's it right there. That's in trot. Those are 4-foot trot poles, I'm sure, or close to that. So if you wonder what that is, that's it, right? Now, as far as exercises to work on this canter, the one thing that I like is that you're on this circle and you are doing these transitions often. That is going to be huge for that. In the transition, the last thing to come is going to be the consistency in the contact. It's going to be the roundness. The most important thing is going to be that the inside hind leg jumps into that canter really nice and clean. And so as difficult as it is to do, and believe me, I know it's difficult because I get caught up in it myself sometimes, you have to not worry if he stays round in that transition, right? He's going to be round enough. Look at him here. He looks beautiful. You could do a little spiral in. You could do a little spiral out. And then when the moment's right, you just go into that canter. And that there was a really good example of where you went to canter and it looked like you were addressing a little bit sort of the bend, the suppleness, the connection, the roundness in the transition. And he cantered stride, and then he trotted, and then he cantered off again. And that's where I think you need to be careful. You want to get that transition to be clean every single time. And even on a forward horse like this, you want to imagine that when he goes to canter, he goes to gallop, and then you canter. And so with a horse like this, that might just be you allow it to gallop. You don't ask it to gallop. And then you work on, okay, now let's be round and connected and collected, and then come back. But if you get working too early on, let's make a perfect transition and stay round, then he may not get upset. He may not say, I'm not going to go forward, because he looks like a pretty forward thinking horse. But what's going to happen is you're going to be fighting with his mouth in that transition a year from now. So you have to be really dedicated to what is that inside hind leg doing in that transition. You want that inside hind leg to be the first leg to canter. Now, some body position things that you can work on. Anytime that I do a canter transition, I think inside leg at the girth, outside leg slightly behind the girth. And how far behind the girth depends a little bit on what they do with their body. If they swing their haunches to the inside for the canter transition, then you don't need your outside leg too far back. I look up and out over my horse's outside ear. So in this case, you would be looking up and out over your horse's left ear. And the reason for that is that then brings your inside seat bone forward and lightens it so that your horse can lift that inside hind leg up into the canter. It's that whole, the neck bone's connected to the shoulder bone's connected to the backbone's connected to the seat bone. And that is going to get that transition to be a little bit more clean. That if you imagine if that inside seat bone is forward and light because you're looking up and out over that outside ear, then that's going to allow them to lift that inside hind leg and lift that back up under the saddle and give them space without having to lean forward to give them space, which we don't want to do really. But realistically, I'd say you're probably 5,000 canter transitions away from having this sorted out. And that's realistically probably what it's going to take, is just some time working on those and being really understanding that the reason he lifts his head and neck is because he's trying to figure out how to get his shoulder up out of the way and get his hind end underneath, and he doesn't know how to do that yet. So big, powerful transitions take advantage of the fact that he is a strong, forward-thinking horse bred for sport, and just have complete faith and belief in the system that in 6 weeks, 6 months, 12 months, 18 months, it's going to become easier and easier for him, because he's going to understand the way out is in front of him. He's going to be met with a soft, kind hand, and then he's going to be happy to eventually start to accept that contact and become rounder in it.
Awesome.
Oh, we lost your audio. I did. You muted. Oh, we're having technical difficulties. It's probably Jess's fault. Huh? No. Oh, it's like my own podcast now. This is great. We can talk about anything. All right. We'll see if we get Kinsey back. Oh, I see her.
I'm sorry, Jon. Can you hear me now?
There we go.
Oh, can you hear me now?
Yep.
Oh, I can't hear you. Hold on one second.
Oh, okay.
Okay, I can hear you.
You can hear me now?
I apologize. Okay, we're here on the final minute of this, and my computer is deciding just to call it a year, I think. I appreciate you so much, Jon. That was wonderful feedback for everyone and advice, and I think that people are going to have some awesome homework to go into the new year with. And everybody who submitted your videos, thank you so much for doing so. They were so much fun to watch and to learn from you, and we hope to get updates on the next video review. But Jon, thank you.
Thank you, Kinsey. Thanks, everybody, as Kinsey said, for submitting the videos. That's always fun to see, and I know it is putting yourself out there, which is not an easy thing to do. I also know Robin is going to be here for Christmas dinner tomorrow night, and she's probably going to yell at me for getting after her about that. But I appreciate everybody submitting the videos because that was a ton of fun.
Amazing. Couldn't agree more. And on that note, I mean, happy holidays, everyone. Happy New Year. Jon, thank you so much for a fabulous 2025. And I'm just excited for this next year.
Happy New Year and Merry Christmas or whatever you guys celebrate.
Wonderful. Well, have a great evening, everyone. And we'll catch you in the new year. Bye, guys.